Hello, book connectors. Welcome to the Book Connection. I am your host, Blue-Eyed Black Devil. Visitors, should you happen upon the channel, feel free to join us, won't you? Hello again, book connectors. Welcome to the Book Connection. I am your host, Blue-Eyed Black Devil, and I hope everyone is doing well on this wonderful Wednesday. Well, it's Wednesday as I am recording. I don't know if we're going to make it to YouTube, but my goal is to get it done before I go to bed tonight or lay down anyway. So with all of that being said, let's get to why you're here. I have read 5 books. One of them was an autobiography. One was a biography. Well, the other 4 were biographies when I stop and think about it. Then I've watched countless interviews, documentaries, performances on this person. And there's not like 2 beans worth of difference from one to the other. So instead of focusing on one book or interview or documentary in particular, I am going to tell the story as I took it in. So it's for that reason that I listed all of these things, because we're still talking about the same person. So if you are a person of a particular age, my age and older, you may be familiar with songs like I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You, or you may know Giving Him Something He Can Feel, which was remade by the R&B group In Vogue back in the early 2000s, I believe it was. Now, if you are a person of a particular age, my age or younger, perhaps you know her latter works, like her Freeway to Love, or Freeway of Love, or Who's Zooming Who. But really, unless you have lived under a rock, well, let's forget the rock. Unless you have lived under a cinder block your entire life, I know you'll know who I'm talking about when I say this next word. Respect. Yes, ma'am, yes, sir. I am going to be talking about the one and only incomparable Queen of Soul herself, Miss Aretha Franklin. Aretha, I hope I do you proud. Aretha Louise Franklin was born on some sources say March 21st, 1941, but most say March 25th, 1942. That's the one I tend to refer back to, because when she died August 16th, 2018, it listed her age at 76. So 2018 minus 1942 gives you 76. So that's the one I'm going to go with. Let's see. She was born in Memphis, Tennessee, to parents Clarence Levon Franklin, also, or better known as Reverend C.L. Franklin, and mother, Mrs. Barbara Siggers Franklin. When Aretha was 2, the family relocated to Buffalo, New York, and then gradually, like by 1946, they had moved to Detroit, Michigan. So Aretha was around 4 when they went to Detroit, and that's just where the Franklin family resided. Now, both parents had children from prior relationships. Barbara had a son named Vaughn, and Clarence adopted Vaughn, and it said that Vaughn was, I think he was almost grown before he found out that CL was not his birth father. Now, CL, on the other hand, Okay, book connectors, if I'm being honest, and honest is what I want to be, I'm going to speak about something that I'm pretty sure um, is not anything anyone close to Aretha or the family would care for me to say, but I'm not the last one or the first to do it. So here it is, his big secret. When I told you they left Memphis and went to Buffalo and later Detroit, it wasn't necessarily because they wanted to. It is because allegedly, I'll say allegedly, although I feel like it's been fact-checked to death, proven over and over again, that Clarence impregnated a 12-year-old girl. And at the time it happened, he was 22 or 23, so we all know what that would have been. When the little girl's church, whatever church she and her parent went to, when it was found out, they kicked her out of the church and told him he had to leave Tennessee. So this is why they eventually ended up in Detroit. But now, once they got there, the marriage was troubling. It was just always due to, it said that CL was just a womanizer. Yes, he took care of his house and kids, but he was just woman after woman after woman. So eventually, when Barbara got fed up, she left. Unfortunately for all of the children, but definitely it was a hard pill for little Aretha to swallow. She had just turned 6. Her mother left and she took her son with her, Vaughn, and they moved back to Buffalo, New York. However, she got the kids every summer. I don't know about breaks, but I know the longest break is summer, and she got the kids all the time. Now, it is said by family members that devastated Aretha when their mother left. She never really got over her mother not being there. And they talked about how the sisters would, like if the parents are arguing and Aretha doesn't seem to be aware of it, they would do things like stage arguments and shout matches, hoping to drown the parents out, because they knew if Aretha heard that, it would just, she was just always awfully sad about things like that. Now, when Barbara, left, he just kept right on doing what he was doing. He eventually started dating a lady. I don't know if I should have said eventually. I don't know how soon it was. She may have been the reason Barbara finally just left. But anyway, he started dating this lady named Lola. And Lola was there to help Clarence's mother, affectionately known by the children as Big Mama, but her name was Rachel. So she was there, and Mahalia Jackson, I believe Del Reese had a hand in helping to rear the younger ones like Aretha and Carolyn. Well, when Clarence and Lola broke up, I don't know if it could have been any worse for Aretha than the day she lost her mom, but it was right there. When Aretha, I don't know how many years they were together, but when they finally decided that things just weren't working out for them, she left. And it said that Aretha followed that car all the way down the street, trying to get her to come back. And there just was no going back for Lola. And Aretha, that was just another bad thing that happened to her. And it got even worse, because when Aretha, just before her 10th birthday, her mother passed away from a heart attack on March 7th, 1952. And Aretha, she did turn 10 March 25th, 1952. And so she never really got over mourning her mother. Oh, I know. Just reading all of that is exhausting, and I can see how it would take a toll on a young mind and stuff. And it's also said that, if possible, Aretha, although she definitely loved her father, she was real crazy about him, but it was something missing by her mother not being there. They were like, if Aretha thought it would be okay to move with her mother, she probably would have. But it was automatically understood that that would never go down in the Franklin house. So she just had to settle for the summer visits. They went to Buffalo. Barbara would come to Detroit from time to time. So she was always in the children's life. Contrary to what has been stated over and over again. Well, at the age of 12, Aretha gave birth to her first child. 12. She didn't say who the father of her child was, and her dad did not make a big deal out of it. He just carried on with whatever they had going on, because he knew that his mother and any other, I guess, person of the church would kind of help run that particular house, make sure that the baby and Aretha was going to be okay. She named him after her father, so his name is Clarence Levine Franklin Jr. Well, at age 14, it happens all over again. And this time, although her father still wasn't upset about it, he did make it a little difficult for her to do the things that she loved to do other than singing. And so after she had her second son, who she did not give the name of his father either. But back to Clarence. It's been a long-standing, and I'm going to say rumor, that Clarence Sr. was Clarence Jr.'s father. That's something that, that's always been said, but I don't know if any truth was paid to that, but that was it. Then, she had her musical career budding, and she was doing all of this stuff. You guys know I don't really like to go over the accomplishments because they're right there front and center. I do know she won. Well, she was nominated 44 times for Grammys, and she won 18. That number seems a little low, but okay, it is what it is. What was unique about the Grammy wins, though, she won the same Grammy for 8 consecutive years. I can't remember if it was Album of the Year or Song of the Year or something. Whatever it was, like I said, it wasn't the number of Grammys that she won. It was the consistency of them, like 8 years straight for the same category. Now, back to the children again. I told you that Clarence had fathered a child. And for the most part, look like her name, it says Carol, or it's pronounced Carol. And so I took it to mean C-A-R-O-L, Carol. But then I've also seen it a lot of other places, and it was spelled C-A-R-L, but it was still called Carol. I don't know what was up with the name of that, but anyway, I've never seen anything about whether or not the Franklin children had any type of a relationship with their oldest sister. When I said Aretha was his third daughter born to him, that is what I was referring to, because it was Carol. I'm just talking about the daughters now. It was Carol, Irma, Aretha, and Carolyn. And I did and still do wonder if there was ever a relationship between her and the rest of her brothers and sisters. But, yeah, so let's get back. Let's talk a little bit about her personal life. Aretha was married 3 times and she had 4 sons. She had, all 4 of them had a different daddy. So, the first marriage, I believe, was the one that got most of the press because it was in Aretha's heyday. She was really starting to make a name for herself all over the country and world or whatever. So she married her music producer. His name was Teddy White. And with him, she had her son, Teddy Richards. He chose the last name Richards to try to maintain some sort of anonymity there. But when they were married in 1961 and divorced in 69. And when they divorced, instead of Ted staying with Aretha and her other 2 sons, he went away and was raised primarily on his father's side. And that's what I read. So I don't know if the father was like in and out or they just kind of handed them another baby. That I don't know. But either way it goes, then she had a relationship with this man named Kenneth E. Cunningham. They called him Wolf. I don't know what all that was, but yeah, that's what they called him. And they had a son. She had a son with Kenneth Edward Cunningham. And now she didn't marry him, and this was her last child. He was given the name, and it's quite a unique name. It is based off of the first letter of every one of his dad's names and then every one of his mom's names. So his name is, the son I'm speaking here, I hope I'm saying it right, it's called Kekaf. K-E-C standing for Kenneth Edward Cunningham, and then A-L-F for Aretha Louise Franklin, pronounced Kekaf. I hope he has a nickname. Okay, but anyway, she did not marry Wolf. After that relationship ended, she ended up marrying actor Glenn Turman. He played on the sitcom A Different World. And I'm not sure, I can't remember, but either Glenn or Wolf, the relationship ended because Aretha felt like it ended because they didn't want to be in the background. Basically, they wanted to be the one to run the show, the man who works, and then the wife stays home and takes care of the children, which clearly was not going to be okay with Aretha. If that is true, I don't know how they didn't realize she wasn't there raising the children she had before she had the one with Wolf. And Glenn, I don't know what, oh, well, they didn't have any children together. But anyway, she married him and it ended in divorce. Now it is said that she ended up, at some point, this is where I can't remember, guys, but at some point, if you all are familiar with the Pointer Sisters at all, in the beginning, in the early years, it was all 4 of the Pointer ladies. It was Ruth, Anita, Bonnie, and June. Well, somewhere during their rise and Aretha's, Aretha dated Dennis Edwards from the group The Temptations, and he had some solo success, but most of what I remember about him was from The Temptations. But I'm not. Apparently, he and Aretha were dating, but along the way, he ended up with Ruth Pointer, the oldest Pointer lady, and the only one still living. They married and they had a daughter together, but their marriage pretty much ended, from what I can understand, is because both of them were just on drugs in the worst way. It was so bad that one time Ruth was out with people and doing whatever they did, and she had their daughter, her daughter, and Dennis's daughter. And somehow they noticed that the little girl was missing, and they found her. She was just about to burn herself. She had reached up on the stove or something, and she could have gotten seriously hurt. Well, that sobered Ruth up right away. She went home and told Dennis that they were going to have to stop living that way because they almost lost their daughter. Now, according to what I heard was said, was that Dennis said he have a problem with the drug usage. In other words, you can stop if you want to, but I'm not going to. And Ruth did clean up for a little while, but she eventually drifted back. Now, the reason I say he must have been with Aretha before he got with Ruth is because from that day that Aretha found out that's who he was seeing, she slighted or snubbed Ruth every chance she got. It is said that once you crossed her path, there was no going back. She was just done with you. And so, if that's the case, Ruth Pointer was no different, I suppose. Now, unfortunately, Aretha developed pancreatic cancer. I think it was in 2010, because she didn't really care to discuss what her health status ever was. And if she did say something, it was always about how she's in her best health, and she might have had a little bit of a stumble, but they gotten it together. All the stuff that people say when they, don't really care for you knowing anything. But I do believe it was like 2008, or somewhere between 2008 and 2010. Goodness gracious, 2010. But she didn't say anything for the longest. She just kind of stopped doing shows and things of that nature. And then when we saw her again, she had lost a drastic amount of weight. And she just kind of was trying to spin it as if it was due to just eating right. Because in all fairness to Aretha, she did go up and down. Her sizes did. She would go up and down, as do most people. But this particular time, I guess she must have lost more than she ever had, and she was able to keep it off for longer periods of time. Now, knowing what she passed away from, we should anyway, know that that's a lot of the reason her weight was able to stay maintained, because of the illness. Now, on August the 16th, 2018, Aretha Louise Franklin passed away at age 76 from pancreatic cancer. Now, here's the thing with that. Aretha and all of the siblings, with exception to the Clarence's oldest daughter, Carol or Carl, I don't know how her name was actually pronounced, but every last one of them, those who were raised together, every last one of them passed away from cancer, different types of cancer. Like the youngest lady, Carolyn Franklin. She passed away from metastatic breast cancer. I just told you Aretha passed from pancreatic cancer. I believe Irma died from either throat cancer or lung cancer. One of the men, Vaughn or Cecil, passed away from either throat or lung cancer. And then you got one that passed away from some sort of liver cancer. Now, I forgot to mention when I was talking about Reverend C.L. Franklin. In 1979, he was shot in the middle of a house burglary. He was shot during the commission of his house being robbed, and it left him pretty much in a coma. Long story, short story, he passed away in 1984 due to his injuries. He never came out of his coma. Aretha paid for all of his health care and things of that nature. Now, here's some things about Aretha that I just find, I don't know if I would say fascinating, but they do make me stop and pause. One of them is she had two fears that apparently she did not have for a long time. It wasn't until she was like maybe in her, 30s or 40s, she developed the fear of flying. And from what I can understand, although Aretha wasn't known to do whatever people consider to be hard drugs, she was fond of drinking. It is said that she used to like to drink, and she would smoke. So one time she was flying somewhere, she had her staff with her. She got up to go in the bathroom. I guess she didn't want anybody saying anything to her about whatever she was in there doing. We don't know what it was. But her publicist went and tapped on the door when they were getting ready to taxi off from the runway. And Aretha kept saying she was on her way out. Well, eventually she did come out, but she came out just as the plane was starting to take off. And it just did a number on her. She just couldn't get up. She thought, there was turbulence or something. And it frightened her so bad that she never really left the country again, not in terms of flying. I don't recall hearing anything about her having cruises and stuff going nowhere. But yes, she did have a fear of flying, and it was said that she did try to conquer the fear a few times, but she just could not make it over that hurdle. Now, this other thing, I know for myself personally, for some reason, the older I get, and so was Aretha, the more I am leery of, guess what? Elevators. Aretha, I don't know where she was, so I'm just gonna at random say some numbers. Like, if her suite was on the 4th floor, but she had to perform on the 30th floor, most of the time she just got in the elevator and went on up her way. But for some reason, one time she got out on the floor and she looked up at the ceiling and she saw those the elevator towers. They seemed to be endless to her, and she just could not get on another elevator. I don't even know if she even tried to conquer that fear. Now, for myself, I've never been afraid of elevators. However, the older I get, the more cautious I am. Most of the time when I go places, if I have to get on an elevator, I don't really have anything bad or think anything bad or what could have come, fortunately, until after I'm off of it. I don't know what that is, but yeah, I'm always afraid that, like, if there's 10 stories in a building and I get on the ground floor, I press 5, and the elevator just keeps going past floor number 5, and when it opens, this is just a real bad dream. I pray that's all it ever will be. But the elevator opens up on a floor that you don't know anything about. And then in the dream, I don't know whether to stay on there and hope I go back down to the 5th floor, or do I get off to see if I can get on another one. I don't know. But in Aretha's case, she just looked up and it just dawned on her how far up she was having to go. So she didn't ever get past that one either. Now, in Aretha's case, I guess, she could climb stairs, but my lordy, if you're on, like, the 9th floor and you have to go to the 20th floor, that's a lot of stepping. I would think that I would be okay doing that, but I'm kind of scared of stairwells, too, as I get older, because they look lurky. They look mysterious. They look shadowy, like something is waiting there. Even if it has a full room of light. I don't know, call me crazy. But anyway, I think for the most part, I have said all I intend to say or know about Queen of Soul herself, Miss Aretha Franklin, born March 25th, 1942. That is on August 16th, 2018, at the age of 76. And she was the last of both of her parents' children. Interesting note, their sister, Carla Carol, it is said that she was born in 1940 and she passed away in 2019. 19 doesn't say of what. It just said that she was 78 when she passed. So now she was the oldest and she outlived everybody. I wonder if she had any more siblings by her mom. That would be something interesting I would like to find out. Anyway, book connectors, this wraps this session up. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed getting it together. Yes, it took time, but it was worth it. And so I want everyone to remember, please, do not forget to like, share, comment respectfully, and by all means, subscribe. I see we have a couple of new subscribers, so let me thank you all, and keep them coming. And in the meantime, book connectors, remember this: as long as there are books around, there is always something to read. Book connectors, be safe out there, and God bless.